The last note hung in the air like a breath that refused to leave, and the CEO's hand froze above the glass table as if time itself had decided to listen. She didn't know why her chest tightened, only that the melody unfolding from the old piano downstairs was impossible, familiar in a way that reached back into a life she had buried. Stay with this story until the end, because the moment you think you understand what this song means is the moment everything changes. And if stories that heal, surprise, and remind us why love matters mean something to you, tap like, subscribe, and walk this journey with us all the way through. Daniel Carter had never planned to play the piano that afternoon. He'd come to the charity gala because his daughter begged him to, her small fingers gripping his jacket as if the crowded hall of polished marble and crystal lights might swallow her whole. He was a single dad with a quiet job repairing musical instruments, and invitations like this didn't belong to people like him. But Lily's school had sold tickets, and the promise of free desserts and a chance to see a real piano that costs more than our house had convinced her. When the organizer realized the scheduled pianist was stuck in traffic, panic rippled through the room. Daniel felt it before he heard it, the anxious whisper, the glances toward the stage. Lily tugged his sleeve and looked up with eyes that knew her father better than anyone. "Daddy," she said softly, "you can help." Daniel hesitated. He hadn't played in public since before Lily was born, before his life had narrowed to bedtime stories and packed lunches and learning how to smile through grief. But the piano sat there, waiting, its black surface reflecting a version of himself he barely recognized. He sat down, more to quiet the room than to perform, and let his fingers rest on the keys. He didn't choose a famous piece. He chose the song that had never left him, the melody he'd written years ago for a girl who loved sunsets and believed music could tell the truth when words failed. Upstairs, Victoria Hale was closing a deal that would reshape her company's future. She was known as the ice queen of the corporate world, a woman who built an empire with precision and never let emotion blur her vision. Assistants hovered, investors nodded, and the room hummed with restrained power. Then the sound drifted up through the open atrium, threading itself between conversations and glass walls. Victoria stopped mid-sentence. The melody was gentle, almost shy, but every note pressed against her heart with the weight of memory. She knew this song. She knew it the way you know your own name. 20 years earlier, she had been a scholarship student with more dreams than money, spending afternoons in a cramped apartment that smelled of coffee and old books. Daniel had been there, younger, hopeful, his hair always falling into his eyes as he played the piano he couldn't afford to tune. He wrote the song on a rainy night, laughing when she cried, promising it would be theirs no matter where life took them. Life, as it turned out, took them far apart. Her ambition pulled her toward boardrooms and airports, his loyalty kept him close to family obligations he couldn't abandon. They'd said goodbye with words that sounded reasonable and felt like lies. Back in the present, Victoria barely heard the questions being asked around her. She excused herself, her heels clicking too fast down the stairs, her pulse racing like she was late for something important. The crowd downstairs was quiet now, held together by the music. She saw him before she believed it, the familiar curve of his shoulders, the way he leaned into the keys as if confiding in them. A little girl stood nearby, swaying gently, her face lit with pride. Victoria's throat tightened. This wasn't a ghost. This was real. Daniel finished the song and let his hands fall into his lap. Applause broke out, warm and sincere, but he was already standing, searching for Lily. He felt eyes on him, a presence that made the room feel smaller. When he turned, he saw Victoria. For a moment, neither of them moved. Years of silence pressed between them, heavy with questions and regret. They found a quiet corner by the windows, Lily happily distracted by a chocolate fountain. Victoria spoke first, her voice softer than anyone in her company had ever heard. "I never thought I'd hear that song again." Daniel smiled, a sad, gentle curve of his lips. "I play it for Lily sometimes. It helps her sleep." The conversation unfolded slowly, cautiously, like people walking on ice they weren't sure would hold. Daniel told her about losing his wife to illness, about learning to be both parents, about fixing pianos in basements and schools to make ends meet. Victoria listened, really listened, the way she hadn't listened to anyone in years. She spoke about the cost of success, the nights in hotel rooms that felt emptier than any small apartment ever had, the quiet ache she'd learned to ignore. The challenge between them wasn't just time. It was the fear of reopening wounds, of wanting something that might not fit into the lives they'd built. Victoria's world ran on schedules and strategies. Daniel's revolved around bedtime stories and parent-teacher meetings. Lily, sensing something important, approached them and looked up at Victoria. "Did you like my dad's song?" she asked. Victoria knelt down, her eyes shining. "I loved it," she said. "It's very special to me." What followed wasn't a sudden reunion or a dramatic confession. It was coffee that turned into long walks, phone calls that grew easier, shared laughter over small things. Victoria learned how to slow down. Daniel learned that it was okay to dream again. The biggest challenge came when Victoria was offered a global expansion that would take her overseas for years. Old patterns threatened to repeat themselves. This time, they chose differently. Victoria delegated, trusted her team, and redefined what success meant. Daniel supported her, not by stepping aside, but by standing with her. The resolution came on an ordinary evening, in Daniel's modest living room, with Lily curled up on the couch. Daniel sat at his piano and played the melody again, not as a memory, but as a promise renewed. Victoria listened, not as the CEO who froze in a boardroom, but as a woman who had finally come home. The story ends where it began, with a song, but its message is larger than music. Life doesn't always follow the plans we make when we're young, but sometimes it brings back what matters most when we're brave enough to listen. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of a love, a dream, or a second chance, like the video and subscribe to the channel. More stories like this are waiting, and the next one might be the one that speaks directly to you.